I was at my workstation, eyes glazed over a spreadsheet of financial summaries, when my phone buzzed on the desk beside me. It was just past 3 p.m., the kind of sluggish afternoon where fluorescent lights make everything feel a little unreal. I glanced down, expecting a message about dinner or some minor annoyance. Instead, I saw this. Oliver. Been thinking about it. I think maybe we should end things. This just isn't clicking anymore. For a full 30 seconds, I just stared at the screen. Not devastated, not blindsided. If anything, I felt lighter. Because this wasn't new. Oliver, 28, had been running this exact mind game for months. Every time I refused one of his impulsive demands, every time I drew a boundary, he'd reach for the same weapon. Maybe we should break up. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe you don't love me enough. It was never a conversation, it was a test, a leash. The last time, it was because I couldn't magically take a random Thursday off work for his coworker's backyard barbecue. Before that, it was because I didn't buy into his idea of dropping half my savings on a spontaneous couple's getaway for the gram. But this time, something in me had snapped clean through. My thumb hovered over the keyboard for a heartbeat. Then I typed, "Me. I agree. I'm on board. Your things will be on the front steps in 60 minutes. I hit send. The typing indicator appeared almost instantly, disappeared, came back. Then the flood started. Oliver. Wait, what? Oliver. I was joking, babe. Oliver. I'm just annoyed, okay? Call me. Oliver. This isn't funny. Oliver. I was testing you. There it was, the confession, right there in black and white. He wasn't panicking because he'd lost me. He was panicking because for the first time his test didn't work. I watched the messages stack up on my screen, one after another, while the office hummed quietly around me. Phones rang, printers whirred, someone laughed at a distant desk. My heart rate stayed steady. My hands didn't even shake. I silenced my phone, slid it face down on the desk, and opened a blank email to my manager. Hey, I've had something personal come up. I need to step out for the afternoon. I'll make up the time tomorrow. 10 minutes later, I was in my car, not headed toward a confrontation, not racing to fix what he'd threatened to break. I was going home to do what I should have done the first time he dangled our relationship over a cliff to see if I'd beg. I was going to pack his life out of mine and set it neatly on the front steps. I didn't know it then, but that single text, "I'm on board," was the line between the version of me who tolerated emotional games and the woman who finally refused to play. My name is Doris J. Sims, 31 years old, and for 2 years, I genuinely believed I was building a future with Oliver. When we first met, he felt like the breath of spontaneity I didn't know my carefully structured life was missing. I worked in finance, steady hours, predictable responsibilities, a quiet apartment decorated with muted tones and clean lines. He was younger, charming, impulsive, with a smile that made every moment feel like a sudden adventure. We met at a friend's game night. I remember him grabbing the seat beside me, joking through the rules, trying to impress me with ridiculous trivia facts. He had this way of leaning in when he talked, earnest, eager, warm. For a while, I mistook that eagerness for devotion. Our first months together were easy. He'd show up at my office building with takeout, bring me flowers from the discount grocery aisle, text me good morning with silly gifts. He made me feel wanted, needed even. And I liked that. I liked being the steady one, the grounded one. I liked giving him stability he claimed he'd never had. But slowly, so slowly I didn't notice the shift at first, his affection morphed into expectation. At 2 months in, he started leaving things at my apartment for convenience. A toothbrush, a few shirts, extra chargers, a bottle of shampoo he swore worked miracles. Then the items multiplied. Skincare, hair tools, shoe boxes, novelty cups, piles of laundry he planned to get to. I basically live here anyway, he joked one night, tossing another hoodie over the back of my dining chair. Except he didn't actually live here. He didn't pay rent. He never signed a lease. He contributed to groceries twice in 6 months, yet always invited guests over. His friends, not mine. Every time I tried to bring up boundaries, he'd blink innocently. Babe, you're being dramatic. I thought you liked having me around. And I did. I liked him. But I didn't like feeling like a landlord to someone who wanted the benefits of partnership without the responsibilities. That was when the first test started. Little comments meant to gauge my reaction. You wouldn't bail on me for work, right? If you really cared, you'd come with me. You wouldn't do that if you loved me. At first, I brushed them off. He was insecure, I told myself. He wasn't malicious, just young. But the testing escalated. Once, after I missed his office mixer to attend my brother's stag night, he texted, "Hope you enjoy your night. Your precious shirts won't survive if I get bored." He pretended it was a joke. I pretended to believe him. Another time, he updated his Facebook status to single because I didn't buy him the designer necklace he suddenly needed. When I confronted him, he gasped dramatically, insisting it was playful. Anyone else would have called that a red flag. I called it stress, immaturity, a phase. Because the truth is, I believed I could ground him, calm him, help him grow. I thought love could shape us into a team. But love can't survive being dangled like bait. And for months, Oliver dangled our relationship over ledges, just to see if I'd scramble to pull it back. Each time I didn't jump through the right hoop, he'd threaten to leave, or hint at it, watching my reactions with calculated curiosity. It wasn't until later that I realized he never wanted a partner. He wanted a mirror, someone to reflect back constant validation, someone to bend, someone to fail the moment she stood her ground. His family didn't intervene much. His mother adored him fiercely, a little too fiercely, and she dismissed his behavior as emotional theatrics. His friends laughed at his manipulative jokes, calling them tests of love. And me, I kept giving benefit after benefit of the doubt, quietly hoping he'd outgrow this phase. But people rarely grow out of manipulation. They grow into it. And by the time I finally recognized the truth, it was already too late. He had mistaken my patience for permission, my stability for something he could chip away at. Looking back now, I see exactly when the foundation cracked. I just didn't want to admit it then. The first real cracks in our relationship didn't come from shouting or betrayal. They came from something quieter, something more insidious. Patterns, shifts, the slow erosion of respect disguised as jokes, tests, and emotional ultimatums. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. It started with small manipulations, the kind most people would shrug off. A missed text? You're ignoring me. Dinner with my coworkers without inviting him? So I'm not good enough to be seen with you? Time with my family? So you're choosing them over me today? The subtext was always the same. Prove you love me. Prove it again and again. His friends even encouraged it. They called it loyalty checks. I called it exhausting. I remember one evening clearly. I'd just come home from a long day at work, my shoulders tight, my temples throbbing. Oliver was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone, and without looking up, he said, "Babe, can you take Thursday off? My coworkers are doing a backyard barbecue. I want you there." I set my bag down. I can't take random weekdays off this month. We're closing contracts. He finally looked up, expression shifting instantly from casual to wounded. "So your job is more important than showing up for me?" "That's not what I said," I replied gently, "but I have responsibilities." He sank dramatically back into the cushions. "Yeah, okay, whatever." 2 hours later, he sent me a text from the other room. "If you really cared, you'd make time." It felt like a punch, not because I believed it, but because he wanted me to. That was the first moment I realized something fundamental was off. And then there was the constant boundary pushing. Slowly, my home stopped feeling like mine. 17 types of conditioner lined my bathroom shelves. His temporary clothes filled half my closet. His juicer sat untouched on the counter after he begged for it. His decorative throw pillows, worthless but aesthetic, took over my bed. He called it merging our lives. I called it infiltration. Once, when I mentioned the lease, he waved his hand dismissively. Why waste time on paperwork? We're practically living together. But we weren't. I was hosting him, housing him, carrying both our lives while he contributed nearly nothing. Every time I tried to assert even the mildest boundary, he acted betrayed. "You're pushing me away. You don't want me here. You're making me feel unwanted." He twisted everything into emotional debt. And yet I stayed, because somewhere inside me, I still believed people could grow. I believed patience could heal insecurity. I believed love could anchor someone unstable. But the truth was simpler and uglier. Oliver liked having power. He liked watching me bend. He liked seeing how far he could push before I pushed back. The worst part? He was good at masking it with charm. To our friends, he was the charismatic younger guy, playful and spontaneous. To his mother, he was a sensitive soul who just needed extra affection. To himself, he was some romantic protagonist being wronged by the world when people failed his tests. To me, he was becoming a storm I couldn't predict and didn't know how to weather. And every small manipulation planted another seed, another moment of doubt, another fracture in the foundation. By the time he sent the text that would end everything, The truth had already rooted deeply. He didn't want a partner. He wanted control. He wanted someone who'd chase him every time he dangled the threat of leaving. And he never imagined I'd be the one to walk away first. It happened on an ordinary weekday afternoon, one of those quiet office days, where the only sound is the clicking of keyboards and the soft hum of printers. I was reviewing financial summaries, sipping lukewarm coffee, and mentally preparing for my next meeting when my phone buzzed. One glance at the lock screen was all it took to shift the axis of my entire life. Oliver. Been mulling it over. I think maybe we should end things. This just isn't clicking anymore. The words were simple, almost sterile, but they didn't feel like an ambush. They felt like confirmation. Every manipulation, every test, every emotional minefield he had laid for me over the past months had been designed for this moment, to poke, to prod, to pull, until I broke. But I didn't break. I read the message twice, 3 times, waiting to feel devastation, or fear, or even sadness. Instead, I felt weightless. And in that airy, quiet moment, the truth surfaced. I wasn't losing him. I was being released. So I typed the only response that finally aligned with my soul. Me. I agree. I'm on board. Your things will be on the front steps in 60 minutes. I sent it without hesitation. The typing indicator appeared instantly, like a panic heartbeat, then disappeared, reappeared, flickered again. Oliver. Wait, what? Oliver. I was joking, babe. Oliver. Seriously, stop. Call me. Oliver. This isn't funny. Oliver. I was testing you. There it was, the confession that snapped everything into focus. He wasn't ending things. He was trying to provoke a reaction, another desperate round of prove your love to me. He expected begging, tears, panic, the familiar script where I reassured him, soothed his insecurity, and convinced him of my devotion. This time the script flipped. I muted my phone, stood up from my desk, and walked straight to my manager's office. Something personal came up, I said, calm and steady. I need to head out. She nodded sympathetically. Take the time you need. I packed my laptop bag, walked out of the building, and stepped into sunlight that suddenly felt sharper, cleaner, more honest. The drive home felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body, the steering wheel beneath my fingers, my heartbeat steady, my breath slow and deliberate. This wasn't a breakdown, this was clarity. The packing. The moment I crossed the threshold of my apartment, something switched on inside me, something focused and resolute. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't feel vindictive. I simply acted. Bathroom first. 17 bottles of conditioner. The sheet masks he insisted made him glow. His overpriced flat iron. All of it into boxes. Bedroom next. The clothes he left for convenience. The jewelry organizer he'd placed on my nightstand. The ornamental cushions he claimed elevated the aesthetic, but only irritated my back. Every piece of clutter he'd smuggled into my life became a reminder of how deeply he had settled into my space while refusing any responsibility. Kitchen. His artisanal teas. The juicer he begged for and abandoned. The air fryer he used once before, complaining it ruined the counter layout. Living room. His yoga mat he never used. The faux succulent he insisted made us look earthy. The framed photo from his cousin's reception, him beaming, me looking trapped. I filled box after box, bag after bag. 6 cartons, 3 trash bags, labeled, tidy, efficient. All before the 60 minutes I promised him. The front steps. I set the packed boxes outside neatly and snapped a photo. Me. Everything's outside. Please retrieve within 2 hours or it goes curbside for charity pickup. My phone erupted instantly. Calls, texts, voicemails, 47 missed calls in under an hour. I ignored all of them. The messages escalated. You can't do this. I pay rent. He didn't. We need to talk. You're overreacting. It was a joke. Babe, come on. Answer me. But manipulation loses its power the moment you stop participating. The arrival. 20 minutes later, his sedan screeched into my driveway so fast the tires skidded. Through my doorbell camera, I saw him rush out, mascara streaked from crying, pounding on my door. Doris, open up, this is unhinged. I pressed the intercom button, my voice calm. Your items are on the steps. Please take them and leave. I'm not going anywhere until we talk. Then I'll call the police for trespassing. He froze. Then rage kicked in. He grabbed the nearest box and hurled it at the door. It didn't break me. It confirmed everything. This wasn't love, it was entitlement. This wasn't heartbreak, it was exposure. This wasn't a breakup, it was liberation. And I hadn't realized how ready I was to be free until the moment it finally happened. When the last echo of Oliver's fist pounding on my front door faded, the apartment fell into a silence so absolute it felt like a living thing, a presence, a witness, a reminder. I locked the door, took 3 slow breaths, and let my back slide down the frame until I was sitting on the floor. My heart wasn't racing, my hands weren't shaking. The chaos outside had calmed something inside me. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt still. But stillness isn't the same as numbness, and numbness isn't the same as peace. As I sat there, the memories began replaying, not as a flood, but as a quiet procession of moments I had tried so hard to rationalize. All the times he threatened to leave unless I bent, all the times he weaponized vulnerability, all the times he punished me for having boundaries, all the times I convinced myself to stay. I whispered into the empty hallway, how did I let it get this far? Not in a self-blaming way, more in a waking up from a long dream kind of way. Because the truth is, emotional manipulation never starts loud. It starts gently, softly, with excuses and apologies and tiny compromises. Then one day you look around and realize you've shrunk yourself to fit someone else's chaos. My phone buzzed again, relentless. 48 missed calls, dozens of messages flashing one after the other. I forced myself to read them, not to reconsider, but to understand. Oliver, you can't be serious. Oliver. I said I was joking, Oliver. You're scaring me, Oliver. I pay rent, Oliver. You owe me a conversation, Oliver. Stop acting crazy, Oliver. Answer me, Oliver. Please answer me, Oliver. This is abuse, Oliver. Come on, babe, Oliver. You're throwing us away, Oliver. I didn't mean the breakup, Oliver. You failed the test. There it was, again, that word. Test. Something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. He had genuinely believed that threatening to end us was a legitimate way to measure love, that pushing me toward emotional cliffs was some twisted proof of devotion, that my role was to grab his hand, pull him back, reassure him that I would always choose him. But what he never understood was simple. Love doesn't survive being tested like that. Respect certainly doesn't. I stood up and walked through the apartment that finally felt bigger with his belongings gone. And with each step, emotions began catching up to me. Not regret, not longing, just grief. Grief for the woman I had been in this relationship, the woman who equated patience with self-sacrifice, the woman who kept hoping he'd grow while silently shrinking herself. I walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The silence felt heavier here, like the air itself remembered arguments he dismissed as overreactions. I whispered to myself, I wasn't overreacting, I just wasn't ready to leave. And somehow, admitting that loosened a knot in my chest. Later that night, I rewatched the doorbell footage, not because I doubted my decision, but because I needed to see the truth without emotion blurring it. There he was, throwing a box, screaming, pacing like a caged animal, calling his mother, painting himself as the victim. And then, the moment that defined everything. He said loudly into the phone, "He's evicting me over a joke." His mother asked, "What did you say?" A long pause, hesitation, then, "I might have suggested breaking up, but it was a test." Even his mother sighed, deep, disappointed, exhausted. "Oliver Marie, you didn't." Hearing that broke something open in me. Not pity, not guilt. Closure. Because when someone who raised him recognizes the problem, you finally understand you weren't imagining it. I didn't sleep well. Not because I missed him, but because endings always echo. I lay awake replaying the conversation I wished he had chosen instead of manipulation. Doris, I'm insecure. Doris, I need reassurance. Doris, I'm afraid of losing you. I would have listened. I would have supported him. I would have helped him grow. But those weren't the words he chose. He chose fear tactics. He chose emotional traps. He chose games over vulnerability. And that, more than anything, is what ended us. Not my decision, his. By morning, one truth crystallized. He wasn't testing my love. He was testing my tolerance. And he discovered I finally had none left. For the next 3 days, Oliver unraveled in real time. If part 5 was the quiet aftershock, part 6 was the earthquake, the messy, unfiltered collapse of a man whose favorite weapon had finally backfired on him. It began the moment he left my doorstep, tires screeching, mascara running, ego bruised beyond repair. Less than an hour after he'd thrown the box at my door, my phone erupted again. 47 missed calls, dozens of voicemails, a storm of texts that jumped between pleading, insults, declarations of love, and bizarre defenses. Oliver, you can't do this. I pay rent. He didn't. Oliver, we need to talk like adults. Open the door. Oliver, you're blowing a joke out of proportion. Oliver, babe, come on. I didn't mean it. Oliver, I was testing you. That's normal. The word normal made my skin crawl. Normal isn't threatening to break up every time you're inconvenienced. Normal isn't weaponizing abandonment. Normal isn't forcing someone to pass loyalty exams they never agreed to take. I ignored him, muted every alert. Silence became my boundary. He didn't like that. The next morning, the tone shifted. Sharp, erratic, accusatory. Oliver, you're insane. Oliver, you embarrassed me. Oliver, everyone knows you kicked me out. Then the classic manipulator pivot. Oliver, you ruined my life. Oliver, I gave you everything. He contributed practically nothing. Oliver, get ready to explain yourself. His sense of entitlement was breathtaking, like he truly believed my life existed to orbit his emotional whims. But the real eruption came mid-afternoon. A text at 2:03 a.m. sent hours earlier. Oliver, Doris, we need to talk. I'm late. Me. Late for what? Oliver, my cycle. I might be pregnant. I stared at the message, stunned. He forgot he was dating a woman with a functioning brain. Me. Fascinating. You've been on the pill for years. Also, we haven't been intimate in 3 weeks because you called me emotionally distant. He scrambled. Oliver. Pills fail. Me. Take a test. Keep me posted. Me. If positive, we'll manage it through attorneys. There was a long silence. Then, Oliver, you're seriously going to make me do this solo? Me. You ended us. Remember your text? Silence again. No pregnancy. Just manipulation disguised as crisis. Classic Oliver. When the pregnancy ploy failed, he pivoted to public theater. A tear-streaked selfie appeared on his social media. When you invest 2 years and get discarded like garbage over a misunderstanding. His friends flooded the comments. Men are trash. You deserve better, King. You gave her everything. But then, a plot twist. One mutual friend chimed in. Didn't you dump her, though? The post disappeared within an hour. Next tactic. Accusing me of withholding property. Oliver, you stole my stuff. Me. Everything was on the steps. Oliver. What about my grandmother's necklace? It never existed. Me. We have cam footage of you taking all boxes. Then he claimed I threw out sentimental items. Then accused me of hiding chargers. Then demanded cash. He was fighting ghosts of his own creation. But the escalation didn't stop there. My workplace patched a call through to my mobile. Hi, this is Dr. Matthews' office. We have urgent results for... I recognized the voice instantly. Oliver, I said flatly. A beat of silence. Then, Doris, I needed to talk to you. Impersonating medical personnel is illegal, I replied. Stop this. Oliver, you can't threaten me. Me. I'm not threatening. I'm informing. Me. Next contact will go through attorneys. He hung up. But he wasn't finished. The gym incident. The public unraveling. 2 days later, at 6 a.m., I was mid-bench press when I saw him at the front desk, frantic, animated, arguing. Sir, the staff member told me quietly, this woman says she's your partner and lost her key fob. I wiped sweat from my brow and said, ex-partner, and she isn't authorized to access this facility. Babe, don't do this, Oliver pleaded, stepping toward me. You told me to break up, I said calmly. I agreed. Security escorted him out as he wailed. You're sabotaging my wellness journey. A wellness journey he hadn't started once in 2 years. My gym flagged his membership. He was banned. That's when I knew things were about to get worse. That afternoon, I got a call from Olivia's friend Lauren. You need to take him back, she insisted. He's crashing on my futon, crying nonstop. That sounds like your situation, I replied. You're heartless. I'm single, by his choice. He's threatening something drastic. Like what? He booked a flight to see his ex. Great, I hope they have fun. She gasped. Wow, you're cold. No, I'm done. Because what Lauren didn't realize was this. This wasn't a breakup. It was a boundary, a final one. Oliver didn't want reconciliation. He wanted the chaos of the chase. But this time, the chase was over. By the time Oliver was escorted out of the gym, banned from the building, blocked from my phone, and exiled from every access point to my life, I thought I would feel triumphant, stronger, empowered, free. But that night, lying alone in my bed, the apartment felt cavernous. Not haunted, but hollow. The silence pressed in on me, like it had weight, like the walls themselves were exhaling after holding their breath for too long. And in that stillness, everything I'd been holding together finally slipped. I didn't cry out of longing for him. God, no. I didn't miss his chaos, his demands, his endless tests. I cried because I finally saw, really saw, the woman I had allowed myself to become. A woman who tolerated emotional manipulation in the name of patience. A woman who rationalized cruelty as insecurity. A woman who believed love meant absorbing someone else's storms until she drowned in them. I curled up beneath the blankets, clutching a pillow like it might anchor me back into my own body. My breath came shallow. My throat tightened. My limbs felt heavy, like the grief lived inside my bones. Because even when you end a damaging relationship, you mourn the version of yourself who stayed too long. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, lighting up the dark room for a split second. Then again, and again. The screen glowed with Oliver's name in endless variations. Please, talk to me. Why are you doing this? You're cruel. You're abandoning me. You're punishing me. You failed the test. You failed me. I turned the phone face down. Every message felt like a hand reaching out to pull me back into the undertow I had fought so hard to escape. But it wasn't the content of the messages that broke me open. It was the realization that I had once believed them. I had once believed his reactions were my responsibility. I had once believed his insecurities were wounds I needed to heal. I had once believed his tests were proof he cared. And now, seeing it all clearly, I felt the sting of self-betrayal deeper than anything he had done. Around midnight, I got up and walked through the apartment. Every room echoed differently, without his clutter, his noise, his presence intruding into every corner of my life. The bathroom shelves were empty, the bedroom floor was clear, my nightstand was mine again. My kitchen counters were simple, uncluttered, peaceful. And yet, the emptiness unnerved me. Because clarity, as liberating as it is, often reveals wounds you didn't know were open. I realized that for so long I had been performing stability for both of us. I had been the emotional anchor, the financial planner, the organizer, the nurturer, the responsible adult, the calm in his endless storms. But no one had been anchoring me. My knees felt weak as I sank onto the sofa. I pressed my palms into my eyes until stars flared behind them. How did I get here? I whispered into the dark. Not blaming myself, just stunned by how long I had tolerated what I should have walked away from. Out of habit, I opened my phone, then immediately wished I hadn't. There he was, a fresh, tear-streaked selfie posted to his feed, captioned, "When someone you love discards you like trash over a misunderstanding." The comments flooded in. "You deserve better, King. She's heartless. He'll regret this." And then, a lone comment that cut through everything. "Didn't you break up with her?" The post vanished minutes later. But the damage wasn't the post, it was what it revealed. He was already rewriting the story. He needed to be the victim. He needed sympathy more than he ever needed love. I locked my phone, placed it face down on the coffee table, and whispered, "You are not responsible for the version of the story he tells." And somehow that truth hurt more than anything else. Because I knew that letting go meant accepting that I would never get closure from him. I'd only ever get chaos. And my sanity depended on choosing peace over explanation. As I sat in the dark, tears slipping silently down my cheeks, the weight of the entire journey settled on my shoulders. I wasn't grieving him. I was grieving the woman I had lost, the woman I was trying to find again, the woman who had been silenced beneath someone else's demands. The darkest moment wasn't the breakup. It wasn't his meltdown. It wasn't the manipulation. It was this, accepting that I had stayed in a relationship that asked me to prove my worth every day, and I had done it until I couldn't anymore. My breath shook, my voice cracked. I whispered into the dark, "Never again." And for the first time in 2 years, I meant it. The morning after that dark night, something inside me shifted. Not dramatically, not triumphantly, just quietly, like a locked door inside my chest finally clicked open. I brewed coffee the way I always did, but the ritual felt different. The mug felt lighter in my hands. The apartment seemed brighter. Even the silence felt transformed, not suffocating anymore, but spacious, like fresh air after a storm. It was the first morning in 2 years where my first thought wasn't about managing Oliver's emotions. For once, my mind was my own. Around noon, craving a moment outside my apartment, I walked to a small cafe down the street, a quiet place with warm lighting and cracked leather seats that always smelled faintly of cinnamon. I ordered tea and found a corner booth. As I waited, I heard someone call my name. Doris? I looked up, startled. It was Marina, one of Oliver's co-workers, someone I'd met at 2 corporate events. She was friendly, observant, the kind of person who spoke softly but noticed everything. She approached my table with a cautious smile. Mind if I sit? I gestured to the seat across from me. She took a breath. I heard about the breakup. My jaw tightened. I'm sure Oliver has been vocal. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, not in judgment, but in recognition. Oh, he's been posting, she said. A lot. But I didn't come to talk about that. I waited, unsure where this was going. Marina leaned forward, voice gentle but firm. I just wanted you to know. For what it's worth, I always felt he was too focused on the wrong things. I blinked, hard. She continued, choosing every word with care. He was always comparing his clothes, his coworkers, his friends' relationships, even you. It wasn't fair. You always seemed grounded, steady, content in a genuine way. Her words landed in my chest with unexpected force, like a warm flood working its way into cracks I didn't realize were still open. She added, some people spend so much time trying to look successful that they forget to appreciate what real stability looks like. Real stability. My stability. The stability he had mocked, tested, and taken for granted. For months I had doubted myself. Wondered if I was the problem. Wondered if I was boring, not ambitious enough, not spontaneous enough. And here was someone who didn't know me intimately, someone neutral, telling me the truth I had forgotten. I was not lacking. I was not failing. I was simply no longer willing to be measured against illusions. I swallowed, feeling the burn of something like relief. Thank you, I said quietly. She smiled with a kind of sad sympathy. I hope you choose peace. You deserve it. When she left, I sat there for a long time, holding my cup between my palms. The warmth seeped into my fingers, into my skin, into the parts of me that had grown cold from doubt. That single conversation shifted everything. Oliver's manipulations weren't reflections of my inadequacies. They were reflections of his fears, his insecurities, his need for control. And none of that belonged to me. When I returned home, I didn't feel hollow anymore. I felt clear. I opened my laptop and reread the breakup messages Oliver had sent before I shut him out. And instead of feeling triggered or shocked, I felt distant, like reading an old diary from a life I no longer belonged to. The voice that once dictated my days now looked small, childish, transparent. I realized something profound. I didn't lose him. He lost me. He lost the stability he claimed to crave. He lost the partner who supported him unconditionally. He lost the woman who tried, desperately, lovingly, to help him grow. And he lost her because he treated her as an obstacle instead of a partner, a test subject instead of a teammate. The next text I sent wasn't to him. It was to my attorney. Please proceed with the restraining order documentation. I'm ready. Not out of spite, not out of anger, but because it was time to protect the version of myself I was finally reclaiming. That evening, I cooked for myself. Simple pasta with garlic and herbs. I ate slowly, savoring not the food, but the calm, the space, the absence of emotional landmines. And while washing dishes, a thought emerged so clearly it felt like someone whispered it aloud. He wasn't testing my love. He was testing the limits of my tolerance, and he finally reached them. This was my turning point, not the moment I left him, but the moment I stopped leaving myself. Fallout rarely arrives as a single explosion. Sometimes it comes in waves, slow, heavy, undeniable. And in Oliver's case, consequences showed up exactly the way he had never expected. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady and unavoidable. While I reclaimed my peace, his world began collapsing piece by piece. 3 days after the breakup text that wasn't a joke, Oliver's meltdown was in full public view. Day 1 was denial. He insisted he hadn't meant it, that I misunderstood, that I owed him forgiveness. Day 2 was rage. Aggressive messages, accusations, emotional attacks. Day 3 was bargaining mixed with stalking. And social media theatrics. He posted a tear-streaked selfie with the caption, "When you invest 2 years and get discarded like trash over a misunderstanding." The comments flooded in from his usual hype squad. "You deserve better, King. She's heartless. Her loss." But then, the one comment that killed the entire narrative. "Didn't you dump her?" Silence. Seconds later, the post vanished. People weren't buying his story anymore. not even his own friends. When public sympathy fell apart, Oliver grasped for control. Tactic 1, fake pregnancy. His 2 a.m. message. Oliver, I'm late. I might be pregnant. I shut that down instantly. He had forgotten biology in his desperation. The silence afterward was more telling than the lie itself. Tactic 2, false claims of theft. He accused me of hiding heirlooms, chargers, sentimental items, irreplaceable belongings. None of them existed. I simply replied, me. Everything you left is visible in the doorbell camera footage. No drama, just facts. Tactic 3, impersonating medical personnel. He called my workplace pretending to be a dentist with urgent test results. The receptionist patched him through. I recognized his voice immediately. Me. This is illegal. Stop contacting me. Next communication goes through lawyers. That ended quickly. Nothing prepared me for the spectacle he made at my gym. At 6 a.m., mid-bench press, I heard raised voices near the front desk. This woman says she's your partner and lost her access fob, a staff member whispered. I looked up. There he was, disheveled, panicked, trying to charm the staff into granting access. I walked over calmly. She's my ex, I told the staff, and she no longer has permission to enter this facility. He spun toward me, eyes wide and wild. Babe, don't do this. Just talk to me. I shook my head. You ended us. I simply agreed. Security escorted him outside while he wailed. You're sabotaging my wellness journey. The irony? He had never set foot in the gym until now. That was the day his membership was flagged and banned. Later, I got a call from Lauren, his friend, not mine. You need to take Oliver back, she demanded. He's crying on my futon nonstop. That sounds like your issue, I replied calmly. He just needs reassurance. No, I said. He needs accountability. She huffed. He's threatening something drastic. I stayed quiet. Like what? He booked a flight to see his ex. Without hesitation, I said, Great. I wish them both happiness. You're cold, she snapped. I'm single, I answered. By his choice. And that was the end of that. His ex didn't exist in this part of the story. He never boarded a plane. He crashed at his aunt's house and pretended he was out of state by posting photos ripped from Google Images. His cousin exposed him in my DMs. He's here, hasn't left the couch, thought you'd want the truth. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. His illusions were unraveling without my participation. Oliver eventually matched on an app with a man named Blake, another victim in training. He convinced Blake that I was the villain. Controlling, dangerous, emotionally abusive. One evening, my doorbell rang. On the camera was Blake, chest puffed, ready to stand up for Oliver. You Doris? He asked. Yes, I said. He recited Oliver's accusations like a script, so I calmly showed him. The breakup text Oliver sent me. Oliver's admission that it was a test. The footage of him throwing boxes. The gym incident reports. The workplace impersonation logs. My lawyer's restraining order, preparation. Blake's face drained of color. Bro, I had no idea, he muttered. Run, I advised. Run fast. He nodded and left. 10 minutes later, Oliver called me shrieking. I didn't pick up. The voicemail was gold, accusing me of stealing love, ruining his soulmate connection, and sabotaging joy. He sounded less like a man in love and more like a man losing control of his entire narrative. Within weeks, I filed a formal restraining order. The judge looked through the evidence, frowned, and said, Sir, you ended the relationship. Everything after is harassment. Order granted. 500 feet. Workplace included. Home protected. He tried to contact me through friends, burners, notes, showing up near places I frequented. All reported. All documented. He even applied for a job at my firm, another manipulation attempt. His application was flagged immediately and shut down. Then came the fallout he could no longer outrun. He lost most of his social circle, his place to stay, his job, no shows after hearings, his narrative, and finally, his illusion of control. His mother approached me at a supermarket and sighed. You're a decent woman, Doris. My son, he ruined a good thing. I simply nodded, past tense. 6 months later, my life looks nothing like the mess Oliver left behind. There's no dramatic finale, no cinematic showdown, just quiet. A kind of quiet so clean, it feels like fresh air filling lungs that had been tight for too long. Oliver is gone. Not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually gone from the blueprint of my life. The restraining order was approved, enforced, and eventually respected, mostly because his own consequences boxed him in far more effectively than any courtroom could. He lost almost everything he used to prop up his ego. friendships, job stability, housing, the illusion of being the victim. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. Not loudly, not publicly, just steadily, like I was learning how to inhabit my own life again. I dated lightly, focused on my career, earned a promotion, turned my apartment from a battleground of emotional clutter into a space that finally felt like mine. My living room no longer looked like an influencer starter pack. My shelves held books I actually read. My bed held pillows I didn't have to throw on the floor every night. My kitchen counters were free of unused appliances that existed only for Instagram stories. Peace wasn't something I chased anymore. It was something I protected. Last week, I ran into Oliver's mother at the grocery store, a surprise, a pause, an awkward breath between us. But she didn't glare. She didn't accuse. She just said softly, "I'm sorry about everything, Doris. Oliver, he knows he ruined something good." Past tense, a clean cut. I smiled gently. I hope he grows from it. Because I didn't need revenge. I didn't need vindication. I already had closure. Oliver thought love was something you tested, something you dangled, something you threatened to withdraw to see how tightly someone clung. But here's the truth I wish someone had told me sooner. If someone tests your love by threatening to lose you, let them. Let them walk. Let them learn. Because anyone who truly wants to stay would never gamble the relationship to begin with. And if they call it just a joke, or just a test, or just a moment, remember, if love needs to be tested to prove it's real, it already isn't. My only regret? Keeping those ridiculous decorative cushions for as long as I did. Everything else, I'm grateful for. The test ended, and I passed by, walking away.